keep your head up. You're not alone. Keep your head up, keep your head up. We're halfway home.
It's time for Your Voices of Hope, a video podcast program that offers straight talk on some of the major issues facing us today: addiction, domestic violence, homelessness, human trafficking, and suicide. But more than that, it's our desire to inspire hope. Now, your host, Michelle Beyer.
Welcome to Your Voices of Hope. I am your host, Michelle Beyer. And today my guest is Julie Johnson, the Area Relations Coordinator for Southwest Ohio Thrive Support. And she's also a certified peer support specialist. Hi, Julie.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing great. It is so nice that you can join us today.
Thank you for having me.
I'm excited to hear your story. It sounds like a very in-depth story, but a lot like a lot of us. You know, you had your childhood was a normal childhood, as normal can be. You know,
Right.
what is normal these days, you know?
Right.
So tell us a little bit about your childhood.
I'd like to compare it to, and this kind of shows my age, Leave It to Beaver. If
Okay.
you remember this show, Leave It to Beaver.
I'm
that was the
52,
type of-
almost
that was
53.
Yeah, that was my type of childhood. Two loving parents. My parents weren't divorced. I was the youngest of four. I have three big brothers. I'm still the baby sister, even though I'm 42 now. I was very sheltered. So I grew up, and even as an adult, sometimes people will say, "You're really naive sometimes." And I think it comes from the way that I grew up. Like I said, I always had my family, and we are still a very close, tight-knit family. And it's not just my immediate family. I tell everyone, when we get together for Thanksgiving, there's close to 100 of us. I have aunts and uncles and cousins, and we're all extremely close.
Whose house do you gather at?
We don't fit in a house anymore. We actually have to go to our church because we outgrew, the houses that we were going to. Mm-hmm.
Wow. So does everybody bring a dish?
Yep, and that's pretty much the way it works. Is my mom and my aunts cook like the turkeys and the hams, and they set everything up, and all of us bring a side dish and a dessert and something to drink, and we play card games and volleyball and basketball and
how
just
fun.
hang out. Mm-hmm.
Are you guys
It really
Italian?
is. No, we're not Italian. Believe it or not. Just very, very, I was very blessed.
That is
Mhm.
awesome.
Yeah.
I love big families. Mine's in Jersey, so that's where I'm from.
Oh, wow.
So I'm envious of you with that. So you end up getting married, I'm assuming, and so I read a little bit of what you told me. You were in an abusive marriage. How old
Yeah.
were you when you got married?
I got married at 19. I wanted to have what my parents had. I really wanted to be, my dad was the breadwinner. He was the provider. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. And, we got home from school and she'd have fresh made, chocolate chip cookies for us. And I loved it so much. And that's what I wanted to do, what I wanted to be. I wanted to be that stay-at-home mom and take care of my babies. And so I settled because I wanted it so bad. So yeah, I got married at 19, and at 21, I had my first child, Kaylin. Kaylin is now 21 herself. And then I had her baby brother, Arnie, at 23.
Okay. And so what kind of happened with this marriage? This was an abusive marriage? Tell me about your marriage.
Okay. Obviously it didn't start out abusive. There was a lot of control in the beginning. Red flags I should have seen that I didn't see. I didn't see at first, like things like if I didn't do something a certain way, I'd get the silent treatment. fights over, very small things like explosive arguments over, a pan not being washed the right way.
So kind of like that Julia Roberts movie, Sleeping with the Enemy.
Yes.
You didn't line your towels up right.
Yeah, I remember my oldest brother, Joey, had come to my house, and because I have a certain way I do things, but other things I just don't care. And he had seen my hall closet, and he said, I never thought I'd see the day where my sister had all of her towels folded and facing the same direction, and that's what nobody realized, but that's where it came from. It was required of me.
And so what would happen if you didn't?
It progressed. I remember when I was pregnant with Kaylin, we had gone to another couple's house for like a cookout or something. And I said something and I don't even remember what it was because it was that unimpressive when we were at that couple's house. And when we went to leave, he was furious with me and was yelling and screaming. And we had stopped at a convenience mart and I got out and he left. I was pregnant with our first child and he literally just left. And it wasn't even the same town we lived in. And this was obviously 22 years ago now. So cell phones were not big.
Right.
I didn't have a purse. I didn't have money. I didn't have anything. And he just left.
You must have been petrified, scared, crying.
Yeah.
Your hormones are just raging.
Yeah.
Oh.
I was a sobbing mess. And of course I ran into people that was like, sweetie, what can we do for you? And I ended up in an old Bulmer supermarket in Fairborn, and they allowed me to use their phone to try and make some phone calls to find someone that could come pick me up and help me.
And who did you call? I would have called mommy and daddy.
I always call it's my mom or my parents or my brothers. Those are my first phone calls usually.
And so when you went home, because obviously you went home.
Mm-hmm. Well, before I ever got home, he was driving around looking for me because he felt bad. And of course it was a lot of, I'm sorry, I overreacted. I shouldn't have left you. And me saying, okay, it's all right. I forgive you until the next time. And, that was the next time wasn't very long at all. When Kaylin was born, the next big incident, Kaylin was 6 months old and we had gone to the drive-in movie theater because, if the baby cries, it doesn't matter. Other people can't hear. And it was 2 movies long and we had a truck at the time and we were sitting in the bed of the truck and he had a cooler of beer and was steady drinking the entire 4 hours we were there. And when it was over, I said, okay, well, I'll drive home. And he was like, no, I'm good to drive. And I said, well, we have the baby with us, so I'm going to drive. And he did not like that at all and ended up leaving me and the baby at the drive-in theater at 3:30 in the morning.
Oh.
So,
And what did you do?
of course, it was 3:30 in the morning. The manager of the drive-in brought us into his office and allowed me to use the phone. And I called my best friend at the time, and her husband came and picked us up and took us to my parents' house.
And you went back to him, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because that's what we would do.
Mm-hmm. I went back, and this was before the real physical abuse had started. It was a lot of mind games at this point. The first, when it got really physical, there was an incident. I was pregnant with Kaylin, and he broke my arm because he had been drinking, and I didn't want him to drive, and I had his keys in my hand. And we were arguing about me giving him the keys, and he grabbed my arm to twist my arm behind me and pushed me out the door onto my stomach and took the keys, stepped over me, and went where he needed to go. That was actually on my 21st birthday.
So how long were you married to him for?
We were married our divorce was final. We were married for 4 years when we separated, and our 5th anniversary happened during the divorce.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. And so from there, you mended your life. Did he have, did he get to see the children? Did he ever abuse those children?
From there, the abuse got a lot worse. So, like I said, Kaylin, before my son was born, when Kaylin had just turned a year old, he came home drunk and wanted me to get up to go to the store and things, and it was middle of the night. I didn't. He ended up blacking my eye, and I ended up going to the hospital because there was a whole lot of physical abuse that night. I pressed charges on him. The next day, somehow, I think it was his parents had bailed him out. And Kaylin had asthma, so Kaylin was on a breathing machine. I called him and I said, my cousin's going to be coming over to pick up Kaylin's breathing machine. It won't be me. Well, now, while he was in jail that night, he, of course, blew my parents' phone up trying to call me, and I didn't answer because I had decided I was done. I'm not doing this anymore. Well, when I called to ask for the breathing machine, he said, I can't talk right now. The police are on their way and your brother's getting arrested. And I was like, what did my brother do? Like, I don't know what you're talking about. And when my brother found out that he made bail, my brother and my uncle went and found him and did to him what he had done to me. They beat the ever-living crap out of him. And so I had to go over there. The police were there. And I made a deal, basically, that I would drop the charges against him if he didn't press charges against my brother and my uncle.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're divorced.
Mm-hmm.
You're repairing your life. The kids were young, so
Yes.
they didn't have memories of this, hopefully, much.
No.
And did they see him? Did they have visitation rights?
Yeah. When we got divorced, I told him he could have everything. The house, the furniture, the cars. I just wanted my children. And he agreed to that. He did have the standard order of visitation up until, gosh, I think Arnie was in second and Kaylin was in sixth. And he took me to court for custody because my children were missing too much school. Because at that point in time, I was in the throes of my own active addiction.
Okay.
When my children were little and all of that happened, I was not. I didn't even drink. So.
Okay, so your addiction started. Why, when, how old were they when your addiction started?
Well, after the divorce was in 2003. I'm sorry, was it 2003? 2002. I got remarried in 2003 to another man, and I had twins in 2005, and my active addiction started shortly thereafter. The second marriage was not any better than the first.
Patterns that we have.
Right. I tend to repeat things. And I was married to him for 10 years. And I think the reason I stayed with him as long as I did was because I was embarrassed to have a second failed marriage, especially with the family that I come from. With him, it was a whole lot of mind games and a whole lot of mental, verbal, emotional abuse, those types of things. There was some physical abuse in there as well. That is how I ended up with 5 herniated discs and 3 pinched nerves. Yeah. And then I ended up in pain management because of it.
Hence the drug addiction.
Yes.
Very typical scenario.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this addiction took you down the path of most people. Tell us where it went from there.
No, we're good. Yeah, from there it started out, on the typical opiates, the Vicodin and the Percocets and things like that. The pain got worse, my tolerance got, higher, things like that. So it increased, it increased, it increased. I kind of kept it together for a little while. but then I was on such heavy doses that there was a lot of me saying, I'm just tired. I didn't sleep well last night. And because my family's, watching me, drink a cup of coffee and not being able to hold my head up, things like that. My doctor's office ended up not accepting my insurance any longer. So I lost my doctor.
Okay.
And when I lost my doctor, I was trying to buy the equivalent of pain pills on the street, but I could not afford them. And I eventually got on heroin. And when I got on heroin, things went real bad real fast. Ended up in some shady hotels, doing some things that I never thought I'd do. I remember one time my dealer had asked me to make a run for him because I was a middle-aged white woman driving a soccer mom van, so the police wouldn't pull me over.
Mm-hmm.
And me and all my, infinite wisdom thought, okay, that makes sense.
Right.
So he gave me drugs and a gun and asked me to take them someplace. And I did, of course. And I remember walking into this apartment and and I just looked around and there was about 15 men in there. I was the only female. And that's when it hit me like, what are you doing? Like, when did you decide this was a good idea?
Right.
And luckily, nothing bad happened that night. But it was scary. It was very scary. And that, I didn't get so lucky on other nights.
And we put ourselves into some scary situations.
Oh,
And like you said, I did the same thing. I had a minivan when I first started using. I was a soccer mom type deal, and my boyfriend and I was doing, he was 23, I was 37. We were dealing cocaine. He was a dealer.
yeah.
So and I went into these houses too. It was like,
Right.
so I get that. And so, but you said you weren't so lucky other times. What does that mean?
Right. There was one time when, and I don't, luckily, and I think this is God's way of protecting me. There's a lot of things I don't remember about that night, but I had to meet my dealer at a hotel, obviously to get the heroin that I needed. And there was a conversation that I really don't remember, but he ended up raping me that night. And I remember it, but remember no details. And I thank God for that every day. I don't want to remember the details. I remember seeing some things, and I don't remember being scared. I don't remember, I remember crying, but that's really the only memories I have of that night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I identify with you. And so was that enough for you to go and get sober? What was your aha moment? That's it. I'm done. I'm getting sober. What was it?
My aha moment was my children. I tell this story and it's still about, I was driving down the road on my way home and I got a text on my phone. And it was someone telling me that my daughter needed me, my oldest daughter, Kaylin. And it was a picture of her face, black and blue. Her dad had done to her what he had done to me so many years ago. She was at school. I turned the van around, went straight to her school. On my way there, I called the police and said, you need to meet me here because I'll probably kill him. And they got there. I called my attorney and I said, she's not going back and neither is her brother. I'm picking him up. They're coming home with me and they're not going back.
Right.
And they both came home with me that night. And the court, when we did the emergency orders, the court gave me my children. But then when we had the court day, they agreed that my daughter didn't have to go back, but my son did. Because just like so many years prior, when I said he can't have my children because he could do to them what he did to me, they said, well, you can't go on what ifs. He gets a chance. Well, then I said, okay, well, this is his chance. Look what he just did to my daughter. And they said, well, just because he did it to your daughter doesn't mean he'll do it to your son.
Well, that's an intelligent statement.
Right. So I fought. And I fought with everything in me. And I called my parents and told my parents I needed to come home. I needed to go to treatment.
Good for
And
you.
because of everything going on, I felt outpatient treatment was best. So that's what I did. I went to outpatient treatment, and I went through court and fought for a year and ended up with custody of both of them. And he has not seen them since. He ended up signing his rights away.
Good,
Yeah.
good. I'm shocked. A narcissist signing away his rights and giving up. They don't normally give up.
It was over money. He didn't want to have to pay child
Ah,
support, and that's what it was.
child support. Money
That does
rules
it.
them.
It does. Absolutely. My children went through a lot more than I even realized.
Oh,
And I will forever, prove to them how much I love them because of the things. And I know it's not my fault, but there are still sometimes when I say, well, if I had done better, they wouldn't have gone through that. And
and I don't think that
no,
even how can they were at their dad's. It's not like you left them with a stranger. It's
right.
not like you left them because of your addiction. They were with their dad.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't be so hard on yourself.
I got better. I'm not as hard as I used to be. But
So
that
how
same
old,
year,
how many years have you been sober now?
the 13th of this month, I will have 5 years.
Well, congratulations.
Yes. Thank
That's 5
you.
years. That is,
Yes.
I remember I remember my 5 year, and I remember, each little milestone is
Mhm.
just so amazing.
It is. It's exciting.
It is.
Very.
You have to do something small, something big, whatever,
Mhm.
on that day to commemorate that day. And so now you get sober,
Mhm.
and do your kids know? Back then, 5 years ago, did your kids know that you had a problem?
They knew something, but they didn't know the depth of it.
And how old were they?
Kaylin was a freshman in high school.
Oh,
So, yeah, she was young. And Arnie what was Arnie in? So, Arnie must have been in 6th grade
okay,
when all this, when I went to treatment and everything.
okay.
And then the twins were even littler because the twins were from my second marriage. So, and then in the process of when I went to treatment and I'm fighting for my 2 older kids, the twins' dad took me to court for custody of them.
Did he win?
Yes. Because I had paid literally every dime I had into an attorney to get the 2 older ones, there was nothing left. So I had to represent myself.
Yeah,
And that didn't go well.
no. And so do you have custody now, or do you get to see them now, or?
They live with me now. Yes,
So, okay.
last year, I got custody of Hunter and Peyton back. Yes.
Nice.
And
And
they both
so
live with me.
how do they feel about all of this? And do your older two hold any resentment? Do the younger, do the twins hold resentment?
Um, Kaylin and Arnie remember me pre active addiction, and they will tell you that they think I'm a better mom today than I was then.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll say, you were an amazing mom then. Kaylin is in college to be a social worker. She wants to work with people with mental health and addiction issues.
Mm-hmm.
Because she has had, in light of everything, she's had her own mental health issues and things, of course. They're both amazing kids, and they They don't have any resentments towards me. They thank me for being the mom that I am and doing everything I did and fighting for them.
Wow. See, that's a blessing in itself,
Hmm.
because they very well could have turned around and said some horrific things,
Yeah.
um, you know, and so your second husband wasn't abusive to the children then?
He was, he is a control freak.
Okay.
He is one of those people, he does not know how to talk in like a normal tone of voice. Everything is over the top and yelling and screaming. And he was very hard, overly, the discipline was over the top. And he was abusive to his older children, but not to my children. He has not been in a physical
Okay.
way.
Okay. Well, that's good.
So, and I think his older children's moms weren't in the picture. So there was no one really to step up. I remember there were times I got between him and his children to try to keep him from doing things. But of course, then I got in trouble because they're not my kids and yada, yada, yada.
Right.
But he knows with my kids, I'm not putting up with it, which I now have a court order since they live with me. My children don't have to go if they don't want to.
Nice. That's good.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah.
Good for them. So you get sober, you have your kids. What did you do from there?
I always tell everyone one of my favorite things is there's a big difference between being sober and being in recovery. And until you find recovery, you don't realize there's such a difference.
Right.
So the first couple of years I was sober, but I was still really unhappy, really questioning who I was, trying to find who I was,
Mhm.
and still had a lot of that shame and guilt. I ended up, my mentor, who was also my the first therapist that I really related to, introduced me to peer support. So I found peer support and got immersed in everything I needed to do in order to get certified. And my life just started to blossom, essentially. And I know a lot of it has to do with that giving back and, being selfless and wanting to help other people. And I just can't even describe how beautiful my life and I was able to look at things differently. And because at the time I was still living with my parents, but I was okay with it.
Mhm.
I was still driving my minivan and I was okay with it. Um, I got to the point where I accepted things for what they were. And now I'm to the point where I'm thankful for everything that I've gone through. I am thankful for every step, every heartache, every trial, because it has led me exactly where I am and has made me exactly who I am. And I love who I am today. I don't want to
Right.
change me.
Right. Right. Don't
So,
you love that?
yeah.
I I I found Christ during my recovery.
Right.
And so I accredit him for everything. I went through what I went through to be and do what I am doing right now.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
like you, I started very late with my addiction. I was 37.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. I love my life, so I just think so. I was talking to you prior to going on air about we need to tell people, how do you stay sober? What would you do in a crisis? Because there's so many people that are young in their
Mm-hmm.
addiction, and someone they know passes away from the addiction. A
Mm-hmm.
family member, now with the coronavirus going on,
Right.
there's so many people that are sick, or something major goes on. How would you handle that situation and not go backwards? Someone may need to hear that right now.
Yeah. Sadly, I have lost some of my peers through all of this with, the coronavirus, and the stimulus checks are a big trigger right now for a lot of our peers.
Yes, they
Um,
are.
and I've received a lot of the phone calls I didn't want to get. I got, saying that, someone had overdosed and things like that.
Yeah.
And one of my biggest tools I use is my support system. I have built this amazing support system that I know is going to be there for me regardless of the time of day, regardless of what's going on in my life or their life. And I tell everyone, when you're new to recovery, that's one of the first tools you need to build is you need to build you a support system. And
Right.
at minimum, 5. You need to have 5 people that you can reach out to, because I've heard too many stories where people pick up the phone and they call their support and they don't answer.
Mhm.
And because they couldn't get a hold of anyone, they make a bad decision.
Well, let me ask your opinion on something. We've gone through things in life, horrific things, but we don't pick up again. Do you think that people that do pick up again, do you think that it's an excuse to pick up again when they do? Or it's just that they just can't handle it and they don't know any other way? What is your opinion on that?
My opinion, and I will start with, I am not a doctor and I am not a therapist. I do have one of my best friends is a therapist, though, if
But
that
we have
helps.
experience.
I do have experience and I've done a lot of research, and I know we have a disease. We all have a disease. I didn't make a conscious choice to become an addict. Of course, on my mom's side, on my grandfather's side, there's some alcoholism and things, but my parents aren't addicts. My grandparents weren't, but sadly, it was a disease that I have. And because of this decisions I made, I kicked that disease on, if that makes sense. It was always there. It was always laying and waiting. But my teenage years, it didn't kick in because I didn't do anything really. I was, like I was sheltered and protected by my dad and my brothers. And then when I first had my children, their father was an alcoholic. It was my job to protect them, so I didn't do anything. And then when I finally needed something for pain, it clicked what it needed to click, and here I am. I think there's a lot we can do. But I'm always going to be an addict. It's always going to be there. And I always have to be conscious and mindful of that. I always have to be conscious and mindful of the people that I put myself around, the places that I go, and the things that I do. That's why you will hear people, places, and things more times than you will ever be able to count, because it
Right.
matters.
It does matter. And what I also like people to know with the places, vacations always scared me going away. And I actually, for the first time now, I've been sober 10 years. So I only went on my first real vacation, I don't know, a year or two ago, with my husband, and he had a drink, because it doesn't, for me, watching other people drink, it does not bother me.
Right.
He had a pina colada and it looked really good. And I was always afraid, because you want to drink, you're on vacation. I
Right.
picked his drink up. It didn't even, it was so natural to me.
Right.
I picked it up and I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing? And I had to put it back down. But it was so natural and it came that close to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is that easy after 10 years of not drinking. And I don't want the drink.
Right.
I don't want it. I know where I was. So it's easy. And this is why I do this show. This is why I did my radio show. So we can sit here, we can have this conversation, and we can help others know that they're not alone.
Right.
That there's people that they can go to. that there's people just like them,
Yeah, absolutely.
and
There's
that
going to be hard days. There's going to be bad days. There's going to be, sadly, one of the things that I have now been diagnosed with is PTSD. And,
yes,
having someone come up behind me and scare me, and I can't
right.
stand to be stuck in a corner because I feel like I have to fight my way out. But I've never had any real big things happen to me
Mhm.
until literally this year. It was a couple months ago. I was out house shopping with my fiance, and I haven't
You
got to
have a
that point yet. I
fiance.
do. I haven't gotten to
You
that
know,
yet.
third time's a charm.
Right? I've learned from my past mistakes. So I'll tell you about that here in a second. But went into this house, and it had a basement, and it had this smell of like the moldy, water has sat there, and that's what my old house with my ex-husband smelled like. And we walked out of the house, and I sat in the car, and I just started crying. And he was like, "What's going on? Why are you crying?" And I said, "That smell. I remember that smell." And he's
So
like,
I'm
"Are you
sure
okay?"
you
Yeah.
did not get that house.
No, we did not. Nope. But I will tell you, we are closing on our first home on May 19th.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So when's the
So,
wedding date?
October 10th of this year. So
Nice.
I will, there's,
Oh, how beautiful.
thank you. Yeah, I stayed single for about 3 years when I first got clean because I didn't want to make the mistake a third time. And we actually both worked at a sober living.
Okay.
And when we first met, we started off as friends, and he had been talking to somebody and I had been talking to somebody, and then we weren't. And that's when he said, I've been interested in you. I'd kind of like to go out on a date. And we did, and the rest is, as they say, history. Um,
Aw.
he is
See?
amazing. I never dreamed that I would find someone like him. He treats me beautifully. He takes care of me. As much as I take care of him, it's not this lopsided relationship where I'm expected to do it all and, be happy with the scraps I receive. He really wants to make sure I'm taken care of. And he's an amazing father to my children. They adore him and they call him dad.
Now, see, right there.
Hmm.
Your kids, they pick up on things.
Hmm.
And so that says a lot right there.
Yeah,
Wow.
they're
You are
excited.
blessed. So,
Definitely.
is there anything you'd like to leave our listeners with?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, Whether you're new to recovery or you're still struggling, or no matter what is going on in your life, there's hope. Don't give up your hope. And there are people, plenty of people. Sometimes you just got to find them. Sometimes you just have to reach out. And I always tell everyone to look up, there's a poem called The Addict in the Hole. I tell everyone to read that poem. That poem spoke to me in my early recovery, and it speaks to me still this day because it talks about the addict being in the hole that's struggling and doesn't know how to get out. And another addict jumps in. Well, why did they jump in? Because they know the way out. Find your support, lean on your support,
Oh,
and
yeah.
let them be there for you. That's what they're there for.
Well, Julie, this story of yours is just such an inspiration to me, and I'm sure to so many people that are going to watch this. And I'm so excited I can't wait for my husband to get this up and posted. And so I thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you very much for having me. I also want to add that if anyone needs help, they can reach out to me through my work because I do work for Thrive Peer Support. I
Okay.
work with over 100 amazing people that this is what we do.
Okay.
And they could find our website, which is www.thrivepeersupport.com.
Okay.
And right there on that front homepage, you're going to see the link that says self-referral form.
Nice. Okay.
Yes.
Well, thank you again. And I
Thank
want to
you.
thank all of you for listening to another episode of Your Voices of Hope. And if you'd like to be a guest on my show, then please go up to my website, yourvoicesofhope.com. Scroll down to the bottom of the page, and there is a form to fill out. Or you can go to my Facebook page and go into the messenger and send me a message. And I need your email address so I can send you a link to my Zoom. And have a great day, Julie. Thank you again. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thanks again.
Congratulations, too.
Thank you.
Have a great day. Thank you.
You too.